Yeah, we're on.
Yep. Hi,
Hello,
guys.
welcome
Hi.
back to We All Have Stuff.
Episode 3.
And today's topic is
building your village.
building your village.
Yeah. So, I think one of the things that's really hard in like our age group is finding the right people to surround yourself with and get support.
Yeah.
Right?
It's kind of like what I was telling you before we started this. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about getting out of messed up relationships or any toxic work environments and stuff, and how important it is to have a support or a village, or I always say like it's like your team. It's you know, who am I gonna go to when shit hits the fan?
Right.
And a lot of people ask, how do you find those people? How do you build those relationships, especially when you're in different stages of your life all the time and maneuvering them? So
yeah, I think especially if you're used to having long-term relationships in your life, like friends from when you were younger or in high school, it's hard to put yourself out there and meet new people and feel comfortable like trusting yourself with other people, right? And I'm pretty introverted in that regard, so for me, like, it is hard to meet new people and become comfortable with them, and lower your boundaries and your guard.
Do you think it's harder? Do you think it's hard to meet people, to be vulnerable and getting to know people, or to like just to keep the relationship going?
I think it's hard to establish that connection first.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you can either meet people and click and then never talk to them again.
Yeah.
And that was fun, like it was cool, it was easy, but you let that go for whatever reason, whether there wasn't enough chemistry or you're like, oh, that was an acquaintance kind of meet.
But what determines if that person's going to be an acquaintance and you're like, oh, I'm just going to let that go, versus somebody you're like, I want to nurture this relationship because I want, because you have the qualities that I want you as part of my village? That's
such a hard question.
Yeah.
I think just my gut is saying if I feel like there's mutual interest. Because you can meet someone and have a great conversation. Yeah. And in your head, you're like, oh, I'd hang out with that person again. They're cool. But if you get that vibe that they wouldn't text you first, like...
Yeah, I get that.
You know what I mean? Like, I'll happily text someone and say, hey, like, I had a good time. Like, here's maybe you want to get together. But if I get that feeling that they're, like, a little bit not feeling it...
What causes you to get that feeling? There's something that causes you to get that feeling.
I know. It's really hard. I think if I'm looking for, like, a me friend, I think that's different than if I'm looking for a mom friend.
Ooh, me friends versus mom friends.
Yeah, because, like, a mom friend is, like, cool to you, but they're also cool to your kids.
Yeah.
That's different. I'm looking for something different in that person versus, like, if I'm just looking for someone for myself who, like, cares about my kids, but they're not going to be around them super often.
Yeah.
I think that's just different. Like, you kind of have to feel it out,
Yeah, I think when you're saying that, my mind goes to one, which is a whole other topic, but, like, knowing yourself and what you want, what kind of person you are, and what kind of relationships and friendships you really want in your life. Because a lot of people don't know that. They're like, that's a nice person. I'm like,
see,
that's not enough.
I think you and I probably agree on this, that if you meet someone, you're like, that is a go out on the weekend friend. This is an I can text you at midnight and cry friend. This is, like a, hey, well, we hang out every week friend.
Yeah.
This is a coffee friend. And maybe sometimes those things overlap, but, like, I can be very confident in putting that person in one box.
Yeah, well, I have, like, these, like, layers that I'll say of, like, there's, like, your people that you're like, I know who you are. Like, you go to the gym at the same time every day, or you go to the church on the weekends. Right. Like, we know each other, but I don't know you, but I see you all the time.
Right.
But I'm like, I don't care really what's going on in your life. It's just, like, that simple, like, surface level, like, hey, how are you? I'm going to say good because I don't care to tell you my stuff.
Right.
And then I was, like, I know you're not going to call them that, but I would always say in the middle for me was, like, you're a bar girl, or you're a bar person.
Right.
Like, I could hit you up and go have a drink with you.
Yeah.
But would I call you if shit hit the fan and, like, I was going through relationship stuff, or I was, like, going through family, like, stuff, and, like, something was bad in my life? I'd be like,
probably
not. And then I always say there's, like, your actual friends that aren't just like, hey, let's go grab a drink and talk shit. It's like, those are the people that you're gonna call when shit hits the fan, right? It doesn't, and like you said, it's hard because how do you distinguish, like, which ones can maybe go everywhere versus which ones go in certain places.
Right. So why is there this culture now that no one feels like they have a village anymore? Why do you think that is? Because I hear that so often. It's like, I don't have people, I don't have support, like I don't have my village. Why is that?
I think that's a hard question for me because I feel like I do have a village. I think I worked hard to get my village.
But that's it. You had to make it.
Make it in the sense of like building it.
Yeah, you had to find people and connect with them.
Which that's hard,
yeah,
right? Because me and you have kind of talked about this before. When you think about, when I at least think about the person like I really want to be friends with, it does eventually go down to the core of somebody's morals and values. Right? Because I could really like somebody, but if I see them do some messed up shit on my time, I'm like, I don't really know if I trust you like that. Right? I'm like, so as much as like I think you're cool and like we have a lot of hobbies, interests that might be the same.
Yeah.
On a soul level, what you do might hurt me.
Right.
Like even though it has nothing to do with me, I'm like, oh, that's not.
Yeah.
I don't talk shit about you to somebody, so I'm like, okay, well, I don't like that person kind of does that. Like I don't know what they're doing to other people.
Right.
So it comes back to like morals and values, and then I do think good souls find good souls.
Agree.
Right? So if I know this person is picky and selective with who they hang out with, they're most likely going to introduce me to people that they're like, hey, you're really going to like them because they've shown up for me. They're good people. If you need anything, I'm like, oh, so I'm a little more willing to give them a try.
Right.
So I think I've made relationships based off of like trusting a few people and really connecting with them, and then like they're good people and they have good morals and values. So who they bring around, I'm a little more open to be vulnerable with. If that makes sense.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not like you said. A lot of people struggle, and then how do you find people?
Right. Yeah, and honestly, I think I have a theory that because in this day and age, so many younger people like you and I are willing to like leave their hometown and move across the country, and the people in their nuclear family and maybe some of the people that they grew up with are not willing to do that. So you kind of sacrifice your family, right? Like you sacrifice the people that are closest to you and around you. In a sense, like, we have all this technology, FaceTime and everything, but, that's different when you're like, I need someone to just come to my house,
Chill on the couch with me when I'm, like, going through some shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's hard to be like, okay, let me FaceTime my parent. It's not the same, so I think that's part of it, that we have all this mobility, and, I feel the same way. Like, I've moved many times. I haven't lived home in 11 years, but that doesn't change the fact that, like, it's kind of my time, right? Like, I'm not going to be the one to go home just because I miss my family and because I need them around. Like, I'm going to do the hardest that I can to be like, visit me or come move down here to be with me, and so that's a struggle. But it's hard to like reinvent yourself and make a whole new life, and now you have portions of your life like everywhere, you know.
And I think that's hard because what you're saying too about distance is, I mean, clearly, I have great friendships from afar. I've had the same friends since I was younger.
Right.
Have I outgrown some of them? Yeah. Do I feel differently about some of them? Yeah.
Sure.
What if shit hits the fan? Do I know most of them I can still call, and they would, like, I'll never forget years ago when I was going through some shit and I called Shelby. And like me and Shelby cannot talk for whenever, but I've known her since like 4th grade, 5th grade.
Yeah.
And if I call her crying, she's like already about to book. Like she's gonna show up. She's good people. She's a genuine soul.
Right.
And me and her have kept that relationship going. Right. Other people, maybe we have stages of our life where we're different. Right. And I think that's an important thing of like, who did people become in general, even if they're a good person? Like, you see the world differently, you believe in different stuff, and how open-minded are people to accept those things?
Right.
Some people aren't. They're like in this funnel of, I only want to see, and if you live the world this way, then I like you.
Right.
But then when that doesn't happen, it's like, do I still like you?
Right. See, I recently, and I can actually talk about this because this is something that I've struggled with a little bit. I had a close friend when I lived in Kentucky that we were tight. Like, we would hang out all the time. We talked every single day. And when I moved here, she just stopped talking to me.
I remember you saying that, which is odd.
Yeah. And I had to really soul search about it because we were very close. You know, our kids were super close. Our husbands were super close. And
it's confusing.
Yeah, we didn't have a fight. Like, it was nothing. And I had to make peace with the fact that some people are friends of convenience. And I was a friend of convenience for her.
Which, see, that hurt when you say that. I'm like, but it's true.
But it's true, you know, because we were close in proximity. We had husbands in the same industry. They worked the same job. We connected over that. Our kids were pretty close in age. We were tight. We liked a lot of the same things. But once I wasn't physically available for her to hang out all the time, I really truly believe that that's the only reason why she just stopped the friendship. And it did hurt me for a while. And I have had some petty feelings about it, of course. But because I feel like I am genuinely a good friend to people. So it was like, either I did something horribly wrong that was so egregious that it couldn't be owned up to, right? Like, it wasn't...
Or, I mean, regardless, you could... I think good friends have those kind of conversations, though. Like, if you pissed me off, I'm going to be like... Even if I'm from a distance, I could call my friends up north and be like, hey, are we good? Did I say something? You haven't checked in on me.
Right.
But the fact that never happened...
Yeah, that never happened. And there were, like, big moments in her life in that span of time that I just would normally have been texted about or communicated with about, and I found out about it on Facebook. And I was like, okay, like, I'll check in with you, but that's the last effort that I'm going to make because obviously you don't want this anymore. Yeah. And that's hard.
That's hurtful.
So...
But at least, like, it's
it was like a clean break.
Yeah, and on your end, it's like one of those hard things of... which I think a lot of people struggle with. Like, if you like somebody, and you're like, oh, this person's cool, like I said... And as far as you know, that's far in a relationship, you're like, they're good people. Yeah. It's confusing when it's like, what is it? And then that internal process of you having to figure out, I'm the one trying to put so much effort into this friendship or this relationship. And it has, like, a relationship, I said this one day and people were laughing, like, a relationship goes both ways, whether it's intimate, whether it's family dynamics, whether it's a friendship. And if you find yourself always being the one that has to reach out, always being the one checking in, always doing all this stuff, then that's not a relationship. No. That's you just checking in on somebody. It's like you doing all the work, which relationship is a give and take, not a give.
Yeah, and sometimes it's 80-20. That's true. Sometimes it's 50-50. Sometimes it's I have no energy to give you, but you're there for
normal.
Me. You know?
But that comes in seasons. It can't be the same person always giving 80, always giving 100.
That's right. And I feel like for me, it's been very hard because obviously, like, when I came down here, I didn't know anybody. Yeah. We had no, like, you know, you live close, but not right here.
Right. Not like I can get here in 10 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, like, for all intents and purposes, like, we started with nothing. And it was hard that the one person that was, like, there for me for so long all of a sudden was also gone, you know? But, you know, this is all to your point that you make connections with people that fizzle out, but it's also how you see the person and how they see you. Yeah. You know, like, people play different roles in your life, but, yeah, like, that's why having your support team is hard. Right. You know, you need to really trust people that they're going to be there for you.
Yeah. Well, and I think if I look at all of my friendships, and I've been in how many weddings? I was in so many freaking weddings last year, and I gave speeches in most of them. I don't know why people want to make me give a speech because they cry about everything. And every time I was writing one of the speeches, and I'm like same with you. If I think about our history, same with the people I'm closest to, there's a general, like, continuous of me knowing the point where the relationship shifts. Right. And it's like, me and you were cool, we went to school together. So I'm like, all right, see this girl in school, like, I mean, she's nice, she's sweet, we hang out, like, you know, we'd get coffee, we'd do all this stuff. But there was, like, a turning point when I was going through shit, and I randomly just had nobody down in Miami, and I call you, and I'm like, and you lived in Kendall, you lived far. Yeah. And I lived down in Aventura, so it was, like, a good hour drive for me at that point. And I remember being, like, so lonely and so disconnected. I'm like, I don't know anybody. Like, what am I going to do? I'm like, this girl's nice. Like, let me get, like, and I think this is the thing that people struggle with. Yeah. It took a lot for me to be like, I know her, but I don't know her. Right. Like, I know her kind of surface level at that point. Yeah. I know she's nice. Right. I know it sounds like she has good morals and all this stuff. Right. but the reality is I'm never going to know until I, like, I'm vulnerable.
Right.
And me saying, hey, I'm not okay. Like, what are you doing? And you were like, yeah, come down and we can go lay out at the pool. And I was like, I just can't be alone right now. Right. And I went, and that was, like, a turning point where you were just, like, so kind. And you were like, yeah, just sit here. Like, do you need anything? And you checked on me, and I was just, like, crying, and I didn't know what was happening. And you're like, yeah, I'm always here. It's okay. And I was like, okay. Like, she was there, and I didn't have to, like, overly explain myself. I didn't have to sit there and be tough the whole time. I was like, all right, it was like I remember that pivotal moment of like, oh, she's like one of those friends. Right. And a lot of people don't either allow themselves to be, which is hard. That is hard. Or they're like, or why do you feel like that person you can't be like that with? Is it something with them, or is it something with you? And that's a hard thing to figure out. Yeah, it is too. Yeah. And that's with a lot of my friendships. If I go back, there's like that pivotal moment. Like, I had a shit show of something going on and I need you. And people are like, cool, we're here. Like, come over. You don't have to say, like, do anything. Just be in our space because we love you. Vibe.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think it's just really one of those things that it's hard to be vulnerable, first of all. Like, we talk about that a lot. But it's also, like, what are you really looking for? Like, are you looking for a support team? Are you looking for friends? Are you looking for fun? Are you looking for, like, help? What is it?
Yeah, when you said that, though, I don't know. I had this weird thought process. I don't know if I would consider somebody an actual friend if you aren't supportive.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
The other one can go out. Like, somebody who just to go out with. Right. Like,
whatever.
I can think you're just cool. And I can just be like, you're fun.
Yeah.
Like, that's one quality you have to have. Right. You're fun, let's go. Yeah. Let's go out.
Right.
But, like, you don't have, you don't have to be a fun person for me to be like, I love you. I want to hang out with you. I want you to be my friend.
Right. Yeah.
But continue.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that when you're building your friend group or your support group and meeting people, right? What's the most important thing to start with? Are you looking for a connection that you want somebody to hang out with? Are you looking for someone who can connect you to other people?
Yeah. So like you're saying you going and knowing what you need and want.
Yeah. Right. Like for me, I can say that because of the way that our roles changed when we moved, like Michael was always the one who introduced me to people when we lived up north because he was the one working, and like I had school friends. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was like, oh, new guy started working. He's cool. Like, we're gonna go get lunch with him and his wife on Saturday. And it was fine, and that's the way I met people. But down here, with him working, an at-home remote job, I'm the one who's leaving because I'm taking kids to activities and to school and all this stuff. So, like, I'm the one. It's like the onus is on me now to meet people, and that has been really hard.
It is.
Yeah, I have to tell you because I'm not that type of person.
How do you find? Where do you go to find your support system? Like, where are you going to be like, I want to find friends? Clients ask that all the time. We're at that age where it's like, I'm not just in school where you're like forced to be with people who have similar interests.
Right.
You're like, oh, okay. I get to choose what to do with my life tonight. Where am I going to go find friends or relationship, whatever? It's like, so where do you choose to go to make connections?
So, I mean, I think it hasn't really been necessarily a choice. It's just been, like, where I've happened to meet people. Like, our neighborhood is very friendly, and it's wonderful, and we have, like, Facebook groups, and I know that, like, we had posted one time, hey, we're young and we have kids, and these are the things we like. Anyone want to meet up and hang out? Yeah. And I met a couple people through that post. Like, I'm not going to lie. Yeah. And it's been really cool. But, I had this moment, since we were talking earlier about, like, kind of being jaundiced about the people that you want to hang out with. My girls did gymnastics, and there were a whole bunch of moms there. And we were all talking, because obviously, like, what else do you do when you wait for your kids? Right. And there were a couple that I clicked with. And we were cool, and we talked every single week, and we exchanged numbers, and we hung out. And then there were a couple that, like, gave me their number, but, like, I have not rushed to text them.
Why?
I don't know. I feel like
personality characteristic?
Yes, that's part of it. Like, trying too hard, like, people who try too hard.
Because it's not vulnerable.
Because it's
not
vulnerable.
Who they are.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah, like, you're funny and you're being silly, but, like, I don't trust you.
Like, that vulnerable piece is missing.
Yeah, and, like, we would be coming in, like, super upset, like, we had a hard morning or whatever, and it would always be, like, peppy and perky on her end, or she wouldn't say anything, or she wouldn't contribute, like, dude, that that blows, you know?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I hate this shit. What you're talking
Yeah.
about is like my least favorite. Because what I've realized too is like, this is how I'll know if I know I'm not going to be your friend.
Yeah.
If I think you're cool, I think you have a good soul. But I'm like eventually getting to know you and I'm like, oh my God, this thing in my life fucking happened and it sucks. And I'm just going through this, and this. And I'm just kind of like in either a venting stage or like in a vulnerable, like, I'm just going to be emotional with you about like, things aren't perfect in my life. And that person's like,
Yeah.
oh, my life's perfect.
Right.
Everything's my marriage is perfect, my
right.
friendships are great, and my job is top tier. I'm like,
and you're like,
shut up, you fucking are lying. If you think everything's perfect in your life, how am I going to connect to you if you have like this prim and proper life?
Yeah,
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
This is very judgmental of me, but I'm going to throw it out there because it's like the same as like this is what I used to think in my. Sorry, Mom, you're going to hate that I say this, but this is what I used to think about going to church.
Yeah.
And there's always that family, especially in Catholic church, that would sit in the front row with all their kids dressed to a T, prim and proper.
Yep.
And like I was like a hooligan. I would walk into church meeting my family with like ripped jeans, and my dad would yell at me. I know, Dad.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sorry.
But like in the reality, like I was a teenager, like oh sorry, stumbling in. But I was like, Dad, family is not like that.
Yeah. Right.
I want to see what their house looks like. I want to see who those kids are and what they actually are struggling with, because their parents made them dress a certain way to look a certain way in the front row, and that means it's people that that's the surface level people. Hi, how are you? Everything's good.
Yeah. Right.
So that was a big example, but like down to just a friend.
Yeah.
How am I going to connect with you? How can I make a connection with you if everything in your life's always perfect? You have nothing to talk to me about.
Right. That's right.
Right? Because it's not real life. That's not that we all have stuff.
Yeah,
it's
it's
like,
not.
I don't have stuff.
Right.
You have
You
stuff.
do. You
so
have
I'll
all
sit
the
here and
things.
feel bad for you because Leslie's life's a mess, but it's like, well, because your life is a mess too.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's really hard. That's like an immediate vibe, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I think that it's just like a gut feeling, honestly, and it's hard to explain. But people who are just like, I can meet you, and in 5 minutes, if you're telling me your life story, like, tell me about it.
Right.
You know, like, you have a lot of stuff going on. Okay. Like, do you want me to listen? Like, you're sharing with me. I'm a stranger, but, like, okay, I'm not going to judge you on that. And I like people that are down to earth and they're not, like, putting on a face. Right? So, yeah, like, that's basically, like, the bottom line right there. If you give me that vibe of, like, we're having a conversation over coffee and everything in your life is perfect and I feel uncomfortable telling you, like, I had a hard morning or just whatever, you know? I don't want to have a relationship like that.
Right.
Where, like, I don't need a therapist. I don't need a sounding board, just a wall of a person there, right?
Yeah.
So, fortunately, and I felt we've talked about, like, difficulties with gratitude and all that stuff, which is another whole thing for another day. But I can say that in the last, like, 2 weeks or so, I have felt, like, very deeply content with the network of people that I've made here. And the friends that I have made here. Just being able to plan things ahead of time and, like, make plans for March and April and in the future, getting our kids together, having girl time. Like, I feel like finally it's taken a year to get to that point, but, like, I'm busy all the time. It's like, hey, you want to go to the library? Sure, let's take our kids. You know, let's go to the playground. Let's do this and that. And even though the kids are busy, like, I still have someone to talk to.
But what you're saying, too, it's like, how do I say this? And I heard this in a podcast. I think it was on Lennon Doyle, one of her podcasts. They were talking about, like, friendship dynamics, and I love they use the word as, like, a charging station. Like, you'll know when good friends are, like, actually friends.
Right.
Because you have to be seeing, like, do they take energy away from me? And it's like, when I'm with them, I'm like, I'm here because I'm supposed to be a good friend. And but that's not really a good friend. A good friend is like, I can just be in your space and you either give me energy or we don't have to talk. Like, I can just lay here and just be myself. But if you're like, I just left them and it's like,
I'm drained. I need to recover from that.
God, I just hung out with them just because I need to have friendships. But that's not a friendship. That's just like somebody probably you don't want to pour your energy in because it's sucking your energy. You know?
So the question then is, why? Like, how do you deal with, like, loneliness when you don't have anyone, or you don't feel like you have those friendships?
Finding it. Like, I mean, that's a hard one, because that's what, when you think about even like depression and people who have grief is like, I think grief's the hardest one, and depression can have that too, obviously, because your level's low, but like nothing can heal grief beside moving through it, feeling it, and then support is the main solution for that emotion. And when you hear people say like, I don't have anybody, that's like, that's scary. You're like, well, you being alone in this is the worst place to be, because not only are you grieving something, now you're, like you said, now I'm lonely and I feel even more alone. You already feel alone in grief, and then, and where do I turn? Well, I do think that's why I always say build your army. Like, who do I want, and what kind of people, and going out and searching them when you're in a good space. So the loneliness is always there. How do I go out and make a circle? It's kind of the things we've talked about, putting yourself out there and stuff, which is hard and intimidating and scary, especially like some people, like I'm extroverted, but you're introverted, and I know a lot of introverted people are like, I'm chilling staying home, so to put myself out there is like, oh, it's annoying, but how do I figure out what places can I go to find people that are more like similar to me, that aren't going to want to go out all the time? And then I would say, like, the good thing about social media now is there's so many virtual or support groups. Like, I know, like, since you're, like, a mom, I know some of my mom's, like, clients, if they're struggling a lot and they're like, I don't have time to go make friends, and my other friends are busy doing their other stuff. Like, there's so many, like, support groups and stuff of, like, other moms that are struggling with the same thing that you're struggling with, that are like, oh my God, I get you, girl. And then just making those connections virtually to start, maybe that can help. If that makes sense.
And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because I can tell you that I have a ton of friends that are tight. Like, I'm super close with them. We talk every single day, and I met them on the internet. And, like, who would ever think, right? Like, one of my closest friends, we just went to visit her. Like, we're close. We've shared traumas together. We've shared grief. We've shared, like, joy, you know. And we met in person. Like, one day she was just like, I'm gonna come visit you. And she came here. I've been there. We talk every single day. We FaceTime, like, and that is a friendship that, like, I would be devastated if anything happened to. You know? And, like, that is the beauty of if you can use the internet right. Because it can be isolating. And, like, it can be very lonely and isolating if you feel like, I don't have anybody, and then you go on the internet and you're not willing to put yourself out, but you see everyone else living this life, right?
Of course.
And that's hard. Or if you're trying to meet a standard that isn't realistic for you, like put on an image that's like, that can be very lonely too.
I mean, and that's a whole other topic of social media and how it can be good and bad. You know, it's like, healthily you can use it. There's a lot of good to it. But also, like you said, like, feeling people out, not just being like, I'm going to go in there and meet whoever, but you know, again, what you're looking for, what kind of group you're looking for, that kind of stuff. And I saw that a lot in, like, 2020, when kids were, like, staying at home and getting super depressed and anxious, and parents were, like, calling to make appointments and being like, well, of course, we're in a pandemic, which adults are struggling, and then kids, as much as you're at school when you're younger to learn, you know, school stuff, the main thing is socialization. And then you're like, my kids are at home now, anxious, stressed. And of course it's scary to let your kids use that stuff, like, when they're young. So like, social media, that could be a whole nother topic that we would get into another time.
For sure. So I mean, I think that is a very good tool. It's a very good you know, good way to connect with people. And you know what, the good thing also is that it's also a good way to meet people at a very low risk way. You know, because if you want to ghost somebody, do it. You know, like, I've been there with people that I'm like, oh, you know, I thought we could be cool, but, like, I just, bye, delete friend. You know.
So what happens? What is the thing that happens that you're like, there's a red flag moment or something? And I think that's what people, it's the same as when you're dating. Friendship's like dating. You're like,
it is.
We are getting to know each other, and I'm going to see if I want to date you as a friend. And there's a moment, again, a shift where you're like, red or yellow flaggy, that's like, there's something up about you. So what do you think are things that are red or yellow flaggy to you?
I can give you a couple very recent examples. I've deleted people recently for oversharing because I feel like there are things that belong in your private life.
So I'm going to pause you
Yeah.
really quick, because now I think this is with a hard thing that people are going to
Yeah.
ask, because this is like my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between vulnerability and oversharing?
Yeah, I think vulnerability is saying something like, I am having a hard time with my family life right now. I feel really overwhelmed. You know, we have disagreements in my marriage currently. You know, keep it vague. You can look for support. I'm figuring it out. Like, I think
maybe
even
asking a question.
Yeah, like, how anyone else been in this kind of situation, feeling overwhelmed, like, how do you deal with it?
Yeah.
Right? I think that is a way that you can safely and healthily use your Facebook status to be like, hey, you know, friends, I'm struggling. Very brief, vaguely, A, B, and C. Like, anyone feel like they can give me some help or insight?
Yeah.
I think getting on a Facebook status and saying, yeah, and that like so-and-so person, talk all you want about me, you know, ruin my life, my reputation, haha, called your boss. Like,
that's not vulnerable,
you know,
that's being a kid.
That's being,
that's being
you know,
childish.
and like oversharing or posting about someone. And, you know, like, I had one girl, just being like, oh, you think that you can bring me down, tags person, you know, and it's just like, why? That is between you and that person. Like, that is oversharing. Or,
that's
X person,
at that point,
you know.
It's drama. That's just
exactly.
like little high school stuff.
Right.
You
know, or like subtweeting, but on Facebook, right? Like when you would subtweet someone like, oh, to this person, right?
You're like, just go to the source,
go
hash
to
your
the
shit
source,
out.
like, you know, this is just unnecessary. And you see that they get like 1 or 2 likes and no comments because people are reading it and being like, oh, okay, you know. I just feel
it's yellow flag too, is because like then you start being like, am I a person? Because I'm not.
Right.
I'm not a person who likes the drama and like my life. I have limited energy, and my energy goes into work and healthy friendships and, you know, my relationship and like the good stuff in my life. As much shit that comes with all that, there's always negative emotion that comes with all the good stuff that happens in your life. But now I'm going to put my energy in this person who like all they care about is drama and fighting people and making fun of people and arguing, and that's, you choose to put your energy there and like.
Right. And, you know, the way that you said earlier about, like, people who charge your battery, like, I deleted someone because this is their life, right? But it's about their relationship where one day, oh, I'm finally free, and very super vague. And then the next day it's like, hashtag, you know, my happy family, little heart emoji, smiley face. And then the next day, oh, can't, you know, this relationship's just not working, has been working in some time. And then 2 days later, it's like pictures of them at,
I love you so
you know,
much.
and I'm like, I don't, like, do you love each other?
Well, it's
or
just not a conscious
is this
person,
not,
right?
or are you not aware, or are you just, you want people to feel for you and pity you, and like, that's exhausting.
It's a
and
victim
it's
mentality.
Someone I've never even met in person, but like, it's exhausting and draining to just see this roller coaster of your family life. Like, that is oversharing.
Right.
Because that is just, all you need to say is, my relationship is unstable, period. And leave that up forever and ever. But to be posting and taking stuff down and posting and taking stuff down, or being vague, and then people say, hey, hon, what's up? You know, and you just never respond.
It's your way to like cry for attention.
Right. But then you don't want to overshare.
Yeah.
You know, then you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to talk about this right now. But you clearly wanted to.
Right.
Right? So.
You want to, but like, and that's like back to the support stuff we're talking about, is like, it makes me wonder, like, is that person, they don't have other relationships in their life where like, if something in my life hits the fan, I'm not going to post it on social media. I'm going to be like, where's my team, right? Because that's what we're trying to talk about. How do you find your team? Your team is not all of social media, all of the world to know.
Right.
Hey, me and my man got in a fight, so let me be like, oh, my man was a dick today.
Right.
I'm going to be like, okay, like,
nobody
has to know my relationship stuff. My
Right.
friends, I want them to. I'm like, hey, like, can you help me through something?
Yeah.
But why am I going to sit there and play the victim and then, post my man a week later, like, yeah, he was a dick last week, but this week we're in love.
Besties. Yeah, right, exactly. I wouldn't even post having a hard day, right? Like, I wouldn't even post that because I don't want to put energy into filling people in. Like, if I want to text somebody, like, I'll text you, I'll text one of my other close friends. You know, like, today just sucked. And why? I don't even want to talk about it, but just, like, validate, you know? So, yeah, like, I guess those are just some things where I can, like...
those are red
Yeah,
flags,
you know?
not even yellow
Yeah,
ones.
because that's not even someone that if I did meet you in person, I would feel like I could connect with you. Like, why do I want to maintain this like surface level Facebook friendship? Like, you're probably not even going to notice if I have to leave you, you know? But it's just something like, if I'm taking 10 minutes out of my time to scroll my feed, I don't want to see about like you talking crap about somebody because they said something mean to you, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, that also makes you think, like, if we were cool, you would do that to me.
That part.
Right?
That part.
So, and that's not to say, like, you can't gossip about people. You can't on the DL be like, oh my gosh, did you see what X person said or did?
Yeah.
You know, but you're not,
different.
like, crucifying them in front for everyone to see.
Right.
So, you know, like, I think having people close to you and like making your little circle, right? You have to know that that person's going to go to bat for you, or at the very least, not go to their next social gathering that you're not invited to and be like, you know, that girl Gabby, you know, you know, like I wouldn't in good conscience, like, ever do that to somebody, you know, so it's tough. Like, it really is tough. And, you know, it's even harder when you do meet someone in person, you click for a short period of time, and then you're just like, you get the axe for some reason, right?
But that's also like...
But it happens.
Like, that's why I always say it's like dating. Because it's like you go on dates with people, it's the same thing. It's like you're getting to know somebody.
Yeah.
That's dating. When people jump into dates and be like, I love this person. I like this person. You don't know that person. Right? You're going to get to know them once that honeymoon stage. But it's the same with a friend. Like, at first you're like... We're hanging out all the time. This person's fun, but then it's like, what happens when something gets hard? What happens when that honeymoon friendship's over too? Because that exists, and you're like, oh, shit hit the fan, and now my friend's like, well, I want to go out and party, and you're like, well, now's not the time. And that person's like, oh,
sorry, next time.
I thought we were cool going out, and you're like, well, oh, now I realize you're just that's just the role I play in your life. Is just the fun person for you. So now, is that the kind of friend I really want?
No.
And feeling that stuff out, and then, like you said, owning, like, knowing when you have to let go, like, any relationship is, like, it's just not the friendship with, like, for me.
Yeah.
Me and my, when I was in, one of my friends' wedding was at my Jesse's wedding, and, like, of course, all those guys are, like, my closest guy friends, and it's so interesting, because me and Andy were talking, and we're just very blunt about stuff, and we were talking about, like, relationships, and being, like, friends not putting you in the, like... a situation where you feel like you have to lie.
Right.
Like, unless it was for something, like, not that big of a deal, but we were talking about, it would hurt my soul. Like, I couldn't hang out with you and you're like, hey, I cheat on my man all the time.
Right.
I would be like...
Yeah, right.
So I'm supposed to go out with you now? And then every time I see your man be like, hey, I would be like, the fact that you're okay putting that on me, I would never want to hang out with you. I'd be like, if that's your thing, that's your thing. Yeah. But that's not my thing. So I'm going to exit now.
Yeah, right.
And we were talking about that, and he was like, Leslie, if you did this, like, I would say, like, to my boyfriend, he's like, I would be like, you going to tell him? Or, or I'm not going to be around you guys anymore, right? Because that's a boundary of yourself. Like, if you're my friend, don't make me feel awkward in a situation. Right. Yeah. And when we were younger, we used to say that. I'm like, hey, whatever you guys do, like, just, nobody's doing anything on my time where I have to be like, oh my God, my soul hurts. For you. And now every time I hang out with you, I'm like, I don't know, I just don't feel right about this. And not to judge, to each their own, whatever you do with your life, but don't put me in that situation if you're my friend and you care about me. But it's my job to figure out, like, that's somebody's morals and values, though, right? Like, if I'm like, maybe this girl doesn't have the same morals and values, so it's just not somebody I want to hang out with. And that's a red flag to me, so I have to know when to get out. Right. And that stuff's important to figure out what kind of friends you want first. You know?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a good point, because that changes your relationship also. Mm-hmm. Like, you want to be someone who can be honest with somebody, but also honest about them. Yeah. Right? So.
Yeah, I'm not like, this person's great. When in the back of my mind, I'm like, I know what you do on your downtime. Right. And then then why am I choosing to hang out with you if I don't have anything great to say about you?
That's right.
You know, and it's hard.
Yeah.
But again, I think, like, what we're saying is building your family is hard, because you have to put yourself out there.
That's right.
And you have to date, and you have to figure out what kind of person do I really want to be friends with, and not feel obligated. Like, I'll hear that in session sometimes, like longevity, it's the same as in relationships. Just because you've known somebody forever doesn't mean you have to stay friends with them.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, maybe we changed, or maybe you started doing stuff that I don't like anymore.
Right.
And there's like some voice of obligation in your head. I have to hang out with them because we have this history together.
Right.
So I owe it to them.
Right.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Though. Like if you're like, hey, we're just different now. Let them go.
Right. Yeah, I think that's also like important with like family relationships too, because I think that like I know that I have felt very like obligated to meet certain expectations of people just because I'm related to them, you know, or like
most people do.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Like obligation, if they're your family, you have to.
Right. And like, no, if that's not right for you at this point in your life, like you need to move that to a back burner, and you don't have to dissolve a relationship entirely, but it can change, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. I think that like that's very sad too, because you're putting energy into something that is not fulfilling, but it's also not giving back to you, because like most of those relationships, I feel like when you feel like you owe somebody something, they don't feel the same way about you.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, like that's sad.
Yeah, and being the vulnerable, like, I don't know, in my head right now I keep getting, like, thinking about clients that have talked to me, like, when do you know when to be vulnerable with somebody? Like, you don't.
No.
Like, you feel it out, and it might feel good. It's just like anything, it might go bad.
Yeah,
and I'm
right.
like, damn, I opened up to that person about
and it
all my shit, and then they backstab me. I'm like,
right.
Well, then you know. Same as a relationship.
Yeah.
I dated this person, I gave them everything, and then they screwed me over. And you're like, that sucks, but you have to know, like, that's how I'm going to figure out who's meant for me, too.
Right.
And then you'll figure out longevity of friends. It's kind of like how I've told you, like, I've struggled with some friendships that have been, like, longevity, but are closed-minded.
Right.
And I'm like, I struggle with, like, you know the person I am, which is a genuine, kind thing. You might not like some of my behaviors or things that I do or things that I believe in,
right.
but I don't think that matters in friendship to a point. Like, I'm not going to sit here like, hey, you have to be a certain religion for me to hang out with you.
Yeah, no.
Maybe you'll vibe better if somebody's a certain, like, believes in the same stuff as you, but I'm not going to be like, they don't believe in what I believe in.
Right, yeah.
So, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's not a make or break for me.
Yeah, and you hear people saying that, and I believe that's why certain people don't find really authentic, genuine relationships, because you're seeing this person doesn't have to be you. They don't have to be everything that you are and believe in everything and think the way you think.
Right.
Like, me and you think very different on certain stuff.
Yeah.
Most of my friends, we have very different opinions, but they're genuine, they're kind, they're loyal, they have good morals, good values, and that is more important than, hey, like, this is what I believe in, or hey, this is kind of what I think on this stance. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I don't care. As long as you're happy and you're not being rude to people about stuff. But there are people I've had to distance myself because I'm like, you obviously don't know who I am. If you think, or you just think people should think the way you think.
Right, exactly. Like I don't think that, like you said, I don't think that, like, religion and politics and all these, like, big button issues like make or break a friendship. And I've had people break friendships with me because of that. Where they're like, I'm putting you into this pot with all of these people that I'm making a generalization about, and I can't be friends with people like that. And I'm like, okay, so you can't be friends with people like that, but you're also saying me. Right? And oh, no, but not you. But I'm like, yes, but me, because you're putting me in this bubble. And you're making a statement. So yes, that applies to me. It doesn't matter that we're friends. Like, say less, girl. You know, well, we won't be friends anymore. And to me, that doesn't matter, because if I come to you with my heart, I'm not going to be like, let me flip your voting record, right? Like, oh, who baptized you? Bro, no, like, we're not going to chat about this. Like, that's irrelevant. Some people feel that way, and you find that out, unfortunately, not right away.
Yeah, I think
that's what sucks.
That's what sucks.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, I've already invested time. Just like we said, in any relationship, you're investing all this time and energy, and then at one point something happens, and it's like, oh, damn, like, I didn't know this was going to be a thing. This is what's really important to you or to me, and I think that that's very difficult when people want to be, like, straight line of, like, I can be disappointing. That's like, how do I explain that? I think that's the whole thing about emotional regulation. Right?
Yeah.
When we talk, there's things like my friends, my man, my family, we think very, very differently on, believe very differently, but it's not a, you're bad, you're wrong. I'm like, damn, that's kind of disappointing, because like, I'm confused why you think that way, but that's a good friend. Like, we can have that I've had this conversation with my parents. I mean, my parents, you know, we're so different, very different, but there's a point where I have been able to be vulnerable with them, like, hey, I'm confused, like, tell me why this and why you see things this way, and I still might be like, okay, I don't agree with that. I don't see it like that. But I can definitely understand your perspective. It's just, it might be disappointing to me, and it might make me sad. But now that I know and understanding, I love you. I still want to be friends with you. I still want to be whatever. And some people aren't like that. They're like, that's stupid. So you're a person I don't want to hang out with. Okay, like, then don't hang out with me.
Exactly. Right.
And that's why I think people don't want to let people go, because they're like, oh, well, they were a good person, so maybe I should still hang out with them. Like, not if they're trying to convince you to think the way they think and be like them. That's trying to fit in. That's not trying to belong with people,
exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and you know, even just as far as like silly things, right? Like I don't drink, right? But that doesn't mean that I can't.
I definitely drink.
Yeah. But you know, that never stopped us, for example, from hanging out, right? Yeah. Like, I just knew that I was ready to go to bed and you were not ready to go to bed. So I could go home and you could hang with your friends. Yeah. You know, like that, it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
But that wasn't ever something
I can't be your friend because you won't stay at the bar.
Exactly, right? Like, you never pressured me like, hey, like, just stay out. It's going to be fun. And I never was like, you should go home. You know?
Like, tell me about everything in the morning.
Yeah, right. So, and, you know, and that's fine. But that's all, I feel like, it takes so much time to get to that point with somebody, and that's like, it is so hard. But
that goes back full circle of knowing the kind of person you want to be friends with, not what they do, because if that was the case, me and you would have never been friends, because especially back then I was going out doing everything, and you were like, I like school and going home, and I'm like, wow, and we would have had nothing to connect with besides we go to the same school, but I'm like, she's a good person. Like, I like who she is. And when she talks, she's super sweet. She's super kind. She's understanding. You had all these good qualities, right? I'm like, that's what I want in a friend, not the person who I'm like, I leave school or you leave, and I'm like, okay, I had plenty of. I don't even consider them friends. I know a lot of people. Like, my mom's like, you have so many friends. I'm like, I don't. I have very, like, groups of people that I consider, like, yes, they're my friends. But I just, since I'm extroverted and I'm outgoing, I know a lot of people, so I could call somebody quick to be like, hey, I don't want to go to this place alone. Do you want to come? And they'd be down, but there's just something about them. Maybe I'm not like, you're not who I call when shit hits the fan either.
And that was my next question. Like, is that someone though that you're still friends with, and or that you would call if you needed help with something? Or
I have a mixture. I have definitely had. All the, like, the guys I just talked about, my guy friends, they were always the one going out with me. And I definitely have girls that I'm close with that I know, like, I can do both with, and there's other ones that I've met where I'm like, I don't really care, but you're like, you have nothing else to offer me besides, like, I want to go out and have fun with you. And so those friends are easier for me to lose, and I'm okay with losing, because I'm like, you didn't bring genuine connection to my life besides you were just fun. And I think fun's a great thing to be, but that's not what's really important to me. And especially as you age, those things aren't going to be as important. Now, like, fun people are fun people. It doesn't always have to be drinking and partying. It can just be, like, outgoing and, like, talkative. But I like a mixture of both. But I do have different friends for certain things, right? Like, I have you and my friend Amanda, who I would say, like, that's what I said at her wedding. The beginning of her speech I gave at her wedding, I was like, you've never been the girl who I've called to go drinking, who I've called to go out with, because she's a homebody. But she was always the girl that showed up, and I was, like, calling her at 2 a.m, like, shit hit the fan, can you come get me? Or she'd come get me, or she'd be like, my door's always open, and that's how you are. But I also have friends who will be the ones that go out with me, but I still know if I call them crying, they're gonna be like, yeah, we don't have to go out, like, let's stay at home too. Other people are like, well, I kind of still want to go out. I'm like, I need you right now. So does that show you who's there for what? Yes. And
that's something I was thinking about as we were talking too. Like, you can have different people in your village, like, for different things. You know, like, okay, if I want to do a coffee date, I know that it's these people.
Yeah.
You know, if I want to go let our kids run feral at the park, it's these people. And there might be some overlap. You know, we want to do stuff last minute on a Tuesday, I can call these people.
Yeah.
You know, but they're not all the same.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
That's good. But I feel like that's healthy, right?
For
Because
sure.
you have, like, a lot of people. And not all of them care about you the same amount.
Right.
Right? Like you said, I know that, like, I could call you, and even though you don't live around the corner, if I'm like, dude, I, like, need you to figure something out.
I will be there.
You know, like, we'll get this
Yeah.
taken care of. Whereas I don't feel that way about everyone, obviously. But it takes time to just, like, get that figured out, and it's hard, you know?
Yeah.
So
I think it's like I think what a lot of friendships in your village lack is the main thing actually is like a holding space for somebody, right? Like, like people who have told me, like, do you want to talk about it or you don't? Do you want to go do something? Do you want a distraction? Do you want, like, what do you need? And I'm just like, I get to decide, right? I feel free to be like, maybe something hit the fan. I don't even want to talk about it. I'm just like, I don't want to be alone.
Right.
And people who hold space for you just to be, and with no expectation of what value you're bringing to them. And I think that's the thing. Like, people are like, oh, am I gaining something from this person?
Right.
Like, oh, they go out and they're fun and they bring all the people, so I need them. Like, there's people like that are just, they're trying to get their needs met maliciously, and you're like, not a good person. You're just hanging out with me because I bring the fun, and you need people to have fun with. You want to meet people. You want to go out all the time.
Right.
Or is it, no, like, I'm just here to hold space for you, just to be 100% yourself and be sad or upset, and no expectation. And the no expectation thing is huge, I think, in friendships.
Yeah, for sure.
So know your village. But I think now that we're, like, talking about this, there's a whole bunch of other topics. I'm like, wow.
Yeah,
we have to touch upon. So moral of the story is build your village.
Yeah,
it's
don't
not
be
easy.
lonely.
It's not easy, but just do it. Just go find your people, figure out what you want in a friendship, and be on a mission to search.
I like that.
So until next time.
We all have stuff, guys.
We all have stuff.
Where's my cursor?
I feel like there is so